For 6 fragile months, Marcus Bell wore his freedom like a suit that didn't fit. They'd given him a new name, the Miracle of Justice, and a $4.2 million check for the 24 years they'd stolen. But the money couldn't quiet the prison echoes in his mind, or teach his estranged daughter to call him Dad again. The world saw a man redeemed. They didn't see the cracks spreading, the desperation growing, until one night, over a debt of $1,200, the miracle shattered completely. In 1999, Marcus Bell's world was the rhythmic clang of metal and the scent of oil and gasoline. He worked at his uncle's garage, a dimly lit sanctuary where broken things were made whole. His hands, strong and capable, could diagnose an engine's ailment by sound alone. His world was his 4-year-old daughter Chloe, whose laughter was a brighter fuel than any he'd ever known. It ended on a Tuesday. A corner store on Allegheny Avenue was robbed. The owner, Mr. Gio Pirelli, a man known for giving lollipops to kids, was shot dead. A scared 16-year-old kid, high and desperate, told the police he saw a tall black guy in a dark jacket running away. Under pressure, his vague description hardened into a certainty. He picked Marcus's photo from a lineup. The evidence was non-existent. No fingerprints, no DNA, no murder weapon. Just the shaky, terrified testimony of a boy named Kevin Driscoll. The jury believed him. The system needed a body, and Marcus's fit. The sentence was life. Prison did not break Marcus Bell at first, it annealed him. For the first decade, his innocence was a fire he stoked daily. He filed appeals, wrote letters, studied law books in the dusty prison library. He saw Chloe twice a month, her small face pressed against the grimy plexiglass, her questions growing more complex as she grew. "Daddy, when are you coming home?" became, "Daddy, my teacher says you're a criminal." Then, one visit when she was 14, she didn't come. Her mother said it was too hard for her. That was the first death inside him. The fire of innocence guttered, replaced by the cold, hard ice of survival. He learned the geography of violence, the language of threats and concessions. He built a fortress around his heart, brick by brick. The man who loved engines and his daughter's laugh was buried deep, replaced by a creature of quiet calculation and simmering rage. He wasn't Marcus Bell anymore. He was BK 73902, a number, a problem to be managed. Then, in 2021, a crack of light. A non-profit legal group, the Innocence Endeavor, took his case. Kevin Driscoll, now a middle-aged man haunted by his lie, was tracked down. He confessed, his voice trembling on a sworn affidavit. He'd been high, scared of a real dealer, and pointed at the first familiar face he saw: Marcus, who'd once fixed his cousin's car. The guilt had eaten at him for 2 decades. The news didn't bring elation. It was a seismic shock to a system that had learned to live in stasis. When the judge banged the gavel and said, "You are free to go," Marcus felt nothing but a profound, vertiginous emptiness. Freedom was a sensory assault. The world was too loud, too fast, too bright. Cars were quieter, people were ruder, and the city he remembered had been rebuilt around him, a stranger in its own skin. The $4.2 million was wired into an account he didn't know how to access. He was given a cheap apartment, a debit card, and a handshake. "Go live your life," his lawyer beamed. As if life was a bicycle you could just get back on and ride. He tried to find work. 24 years as a mechanic, a garage manager asked, looking at his application. "Where?" When Marcus told him, the man's face went slack with pity and fear. "Sorry, man. We're all full up." He found Chloe. She was 28, a paralegal with her mother's eyes and a stranger's coldness. They met in a sterile coffee shop. "I'm sorry," he said, the words ash in his mouth. "For all of it." She stirred her latte. "Mom said you were innocent. I believed her for a while. Then I got older. I read the trial transcripts. It looked bad, Dad. You weren't there for the first days of school, for my graduation. You were just a story. A sad story. I fought for you every day," he whispered, the fortress around his heart cracking. You fought for you, she corrected, her voice soft but final. I have my own life now. It's best if you're not in it. The blow was more devastating than any he'd received in prison. In there, he had a purpose, to survive for her. Now, that purpose is gone. The $4.2 million mocked him. It was blood money for a life he could never buy back. It couldn't return his youth, his reputation, or his daughter. It was just a number on a screen, a phantom limb of a future that had been amputated. The ghosts of his past began to whisper. The insomnia, held at bay by the rigid prison schedule, returned with a vengeance. In the silence of his apartment, he could hear the clang of steel doors, the shouts of guards, the phantom rhythms of a world that had shaped him. He was a ghost in the machine of the free world, a relic that didn't fit. He started with whiskey. Then, someone at a bar sold him OxyContin. A small blue pill that didn't just silence the ghosts, it made them sing sweet, forgetful lullabies. For a few hours, the pain was gone. The loss was gone. He was just a warm body, floating. The $4.2 million was finally good for something. It bought a very high-quality oblivion. His dealer was a wiry, nervous man named Rico. Rico introduced him to a bigger supplier, a man who operated out of a warehouse in the old industrial district. His name was Silas. Silas didn't deal in small talk. He dealt in product and payment. One Tuesday, a chilling echo of the day that started it all, Marcus needed to quiet the noise. The anniversary of his release was coming up, and the media wanted interviews. The Miracle Man, 1 year later. He couldn't face it. He needed the pills. He drove his new, anonymous sedan to the warehouse. The air smelled of rust and damp concrete. Silas was there, a mountain of a man with a placid face, counting money. I need 12, Marcus said, his voice rough. Silas handed him a small, weighted bag. 1,200. As always. Marcus handed over the cash from an envelope. He went back to his car, his hands shaking with need. He fumbled with the bag, pulling out the blister packs. But something was wrong. The pills were the wrong shape, the wrong color. They were fakes, chalky counterfeits that wouldn't do anything but give him a stomachache. Rage, cold and pure, flooded his system. This wasn't just a deal. This was his peace. This was the only thing standing between him and the abyss. He stormed back into the warehouse. These are fake, Silas. Silas didn't look up from his counting. You got what you paid for. I paid for Oxy. This is trash. Give me my money back, or the real stuff. Finally, Silas looked at him. There was no anger in his eyes, only a profound, bored contempt. I know who you are, Miracle Man. I saw you on TV. You think that money makes you special? You're just a junkie with a rich bank account. Get out of my sight. The words landed like physical blows. Miracle Man. Junkie. They stripped him of everything, reducing his entire tragic history to a punchline. The fortress he had built in prison, the last vestige of BK 73902, crumbled. The careful control he'd maintained snapped. My money, Marcus growled, his voice dropping to the register he'd used in the yard to ward off predators. Or what? Silas laughed, a short, ugly sound. You gonna call the cops? Tell them the innocent man they let out is buying drugs? Go ahead. See who they believe. At that moment, Silas wasn't just a dealer cheating him. He was the scared kid who lied on the stand. He was the prosecutor who sneered at his alibi. He was the system that had stolen his life and then spat him out, broken and expected to be grateful. He was every person who had ever looked at him and seen a number, a problem, a ghost. Marcus didn't remember pulling the knife he now carried everywhere. He didn't remember crossing the room. He only saw the surprise in Silas's bored eyes, the shock as the blade, a tool he once used to strip wires in the garage, found its home. There was a struggle, a gurgle, a heavy thud. Silas lay on the concrete floor, his blood pooling around him, dark and slick as engine oil. Marcus stood over him, breathing heavily. The rage evaporated, leaving a chilling, crystalline clarity. He looked at the fake pills scattered on the floor. $1,200. 24 years. A daughter's love. A man's life. It was all just numbers. And the math had never, ever been in his favor. He didn't run. He sat on an overturned crate, the knife clattering to the floor, and waited. When the police sirens wailed in the distance, he felt a strange sense of homecoming. The first officer through the door, gun drawn, saw the blood, the body, the man sitting calmly. Marcus looked up, his eyes ancient. "He owed me $1,200, he whispered, not to the officer, but to the universe itself. Then, he added the truest words he had ever spoken, a confession that went far beyond this single, sordid killing. "I just wanted peace." The trial was swift. He pleaded guilty. There were no miracles this time, no legal teams, no media crusades. He was just another statistic, a recidivist, a killer. His new lawyer, a weary public defender, tried to build a case. PTSD from wrongful imprisonment. Severe depression. Substance abuse. The judge listened, his face a mask of stone. On the day of his sentencing, Marcus stood once more before the bench. He saw a reporter in the back, the same one who had called him a miracle. She wouldn't meet his eyes. The judge spoke. "Marcus Thorne, you were given a second chance that few men ever receive. A chance at a new life. You were given a fortune, and the sympathy of a city. And you squandered it all in an act of brutal, pointless violence." Marcus listened, but the words were distant, like radio static. He was thinking of Chloe. He hoped she wouldn't hear about this. He hoped she would. Just as the judge was about to pass sentence, a woman stood up in the gallery. It was an older woman, her face lined with grief. She was Silas's mother. "Your Honor," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "May I speak?" The judge, surprised, nodded. She looked not at the judge, but at Marcus. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but held no anger. Only a deep, weary sorrow. "My son," she began, "was not a good man. I loved him, but I knew what he was. He caused a lot of pain. He hurt people. For a long time, I've been waiting for a phone call like the one I got that night." She took a shaky breath. "I don't know you, Mr. Bell. But I read about you. They took your life from you. The same system that failed to protect my son from himself. It destroyed you first." She looked at the judge. "Your Honor, locking this broken man away again won't bring my son back. It won't fix anything. It will just be more of the same. More destruction. Someone has to stop." The courtroom was utterly silent. The judge's stern mask faltered, just for a second. He looked from the grieving mother to the hollow man in the orange jumpsuit. Marcus felt something stir within him, something he thought had died forever. It wasn't hope. It was recognition. This woman, in her immense, impossible grief, had seen the truth he had whispered to the police. It was all one big, broken machine, grinding souls into dust. The judge cleared his throat. "Marcus Bell, the court recognizes the extraordinary circumstances. The words of the victim's mother carry significant weight. However, a life was taken." He paused, weighing his gavel like the burden it was. Justice is not only about punishment. It is, at its best, about restoration. Though I fear in this case, true restoration is beyond any of our power. He sentenced Marcus to 15 years, with the possibility of parole in 10. It was a fraction of the time. As the bailiffs led him away, Marcus caught the mother's eye. He gave her the smallest nod, a gesture of thanks for a debt that could never be repaid. The bus ride to the correctional facility was familiar. The smells, the sounds, the feel of the cuffs on his wrists, it was all a perverse homecoming. But something was different this time. He was assigned a cell, smaller than the last one. His new number was issued. The routine began again. But Marcus Bell was no longer fighting it. He was no longer a ghost. For the first time since he was 22, He was not an innocent man screaming at an unjust world. He was a guilty man, at peace with his crime. He had taken a life, and in a strange, terrible way, it had given him his own back. The gnawing anxiety was gone. The need for the pills was gone, replaced by a grim, sober acceptance. He had faced the abyss and jumped, and found that the fall was where he'd always belonged. He started working in the prison library again. One day, a letter arrived. The handwriting was unfamiliar. He opened it cautiously. "Dad, I heard what happened. I read the transcript of the trial, and what that woman said. I think, for the first time, I think I understand. Not what happened to you, but what it did to you. I've been so angry at the father who was taken from me. I never saw the man who was returned. I can't promise anything. It's all still so broken. But I'm willing to try, if you are. Your daughter, Chloe." Marcus held the letter, the paper trembling in his hand. He read it again and again, until the words were seared into his mind. He didn't smile. He didn't cry. He simply placed the letter under his thin mattress, a secret talisman. That night, lying on his bunk, he stared at the concrete ceiling. He thought of the $1,200, of Silas, of the knife, of the long, slow death of hope. He thought of a mother's grace and a daughter's tentative words. The system had stolen his youth and, for a time, it had held his soul. But in a quiet, unremarkable cell, on a thin prison mattress, he felt a flicker of something he hadn't felt in 24 years. It wasn't freedom. It was something quieter, more durable. It was the beginning of an answer to the question that had haunted him since the day he walked out into the blinding, unforgiving light. What do you do after losing 24 years inside a prison? You begin. However you can. Wherever you are. We This True Crime Story. Comment, share and tap the like button and subscribe to our channel. You won't want to miss a single twist as we unravel what really comes next in another crime story.